All right, guys. Our next section, we're talking about a lot of ideologies and revolutions that come up, revolutions of 1830, 1848. And they all come from this word. So what is an ideology? Okay, think about it for a couple seconds. Okay, we have talked about them before. And so an ideology is a system of ideas and ideals, especially one that forms the basis of economic or political theory and policy. So what are the 19th century ideologies we've studied so far? Okay, well, we did look at some quotes on Monday, and we're starting to label and categorize these different types of isms so that we have a better understanding of how they have affected and impacted a lot of these major political events, okay, and economic systems as well. So, as we study this next era time period, we're going to call this the Age of Metternich, where he's taking a huge part in it. Okay, so which ism does he follow most? Okay, he's yes of the conservative side. So on a political spectrum, a lot of this stuff is kind of a quick review, and I just want to emphasize a few events that really support the idea and the ideology of conservatism. Okay, so we know Congress Vienna, Metternich, our main guy. Okay, it's no surprise, and as the Austrian minister, he's very concerned about the multi-ethnic character that the Habsburg Empire is made up of, and so he is afraid and threatened by nationalism. Okay, and so the victors of the Napoleonic Wars were looking to repress any type of liberalism or nationalist movements that may be messing or disturbing the conservative order and system that has been put in. And so during 1815 1848 is where we're going to see conservatism act out most. Okay, but that will all change. We know that the Council of Europe was the clearest and most effective expression of conservatism. That was the outcome of the Congress of Vienna, was that they would have this alliance. Okay, and we talked about the different principles already. Okay, so let's kind of review. And so conservatism is, in a sense, we call reactionary, right? We talked about how it's more extreme on the right, farther than being conservative, because many those who stick to conservative beliefs are frightened by the past events of the French Revolution, with so much violence and chaos and basically disorder going around society. Okay, so mainly who's coming up with all these ideas and leading all these revolutions? Well, it's the bourgeoisie, and so conservatives look down on them and looking at that they are the ones that are trying to really check and mess with the status quo that's been set up. And we talked about Edmund Burke. Okay, and I must say, you know what? Gabrielle put out some really good videos. I mean, hey, they're really good. You should continue doing it. I think it helps a lot of other people, but I'm pretty sure you put a lot of time into it, Gabby, and I think you're learning a lot through it too. We are all learning from you, and yeah, keep it going. Okay, so with Burke, we looked at a lot of his quotes too, and so one thing we realize is that obviously he is anti-French Revolution, and he starts to advise England to go slow in learning how to adapt its own liberties that people are crying out for. Okay, all right. So there's going to be the Industrial Revolution that's going to institute a lot of reforms because of the social circumstances that it has brought forth in a lot of the cities, but we're not there yet. Okay, so focusing on Metternich's Austria, okay, because Austria is in control of the Diet, the German Diet, because of the redistribution of land and stuff. So you have the German Confederation. Like we said, it's multi-ethnic, and so that means that liberalism and nationalism is going to kind of be like spreading throughout, because many people have different ideas and they have their own identities and they want to express them and they want to really live according to that, not by what the typical social order is. And so the university is a place where liberalism and nationalism is going to start popping up and centering around. Okay, that's going to be the central focus point. And so the Carlsbad Diets and Decrees you guys have read in your textbook. This was set up by Metternich, and it really was for the purpose, of course, right, to really crack down on liberalism and nationalism, and it basically made it more of an underground movement. Okay, there's an introduction of censorship, and they're trying to confiscate any type of anti-unification materials, because the German Confederation was established for the purpose of giving the 38 independent states their own independence, and not having basically a unification of having their own country. And so they're trying to prevent Germany from having domestic disorder. Okay. All right, moving on. We're going through this really fast. So Great Britain, the Tories are the political party that are very conservative, and they are in control of government at the end of the Napoleonic Wars. And so the Corn Laws that we talked about before, it was set up by landowners trying to protect the prices of domestic corn prices, crop prices, and they wanted to basically keep a mercantilist type of policy. That way, the cheaper foreign grains would not be in competition. And so, how does the rest of the population feel? Hey, what the heck are you doing to our prices, right? We want to have lower prices, and so a lot of liberals are outraged by the Corn Laws, and they feel that you need to repeal the Corn Laws because of how restrictive they are upon the English population. Okay, but what does Parliament repeal? They repeal habeas corpus, which is the first time ever in English history. And as a reminder, habeas corpus is the right that if you are arrested, that you appear before a court or before a judge, so that you're not like unlawfully detained. So that right is taken away, and so what are liberals all about, right? And so that's going to be very upsetting. So major event, Peterloo Massacre of 1819. This is where pro-liberals are gathering together. They're, proclaiming their hatred for anti-corn law, and they're basically suppressed and attacked by police at that time. And so you have about a handful of people that die, 11 people die, and you have like hundreds of people that are wounded at that point. And that is an example of how conservative movements, liberal movements, are being repressed by conservatives. Okay, so throughout the Quintuple Alliance, right, you have BARP plus France now pursuing a conservative type of system. Okay, so the press is going to be under more control, and by 1820, what we're going to see in England is that it's going to be more of a repressive authoritarian state, but that will change because we'll see reforms come. Okay, all right, France in the Charter of 1814, right? This is where King Louis XVIII is establishing a constitutional monarchy. France is the most liberal out of all the other five. Okay, but that will change because of certain situations. One is the event of the White Terror of 1815, where thousands of former revolutionaries are going to be murdered and killed by royalist mobs. Okay, so what ends up happening is that a bunch of moderate royalists are going to be put in power because that is who the king supports, and they are supporting the king, and that's how that corruptly works. Okay, in Spain in 1823, there's a revolution that happens, but it's going to be crushed by the Concert of Europe. And what they do is they choose to put a Bourbon ruler in, and that is Ferdinand VII. Okay, and this is showing that the Concert of Europe, hey, is doing its job, right? And now conservatism is victorious in this example. Okay, in 1829, the heir to the throne was murdered, and so this really made the French monarch mad, right? So King Louis XVIII is now shifting from being moderates, right? Now trying to be more conservative. Okay, and so we're going to see how that will change France as well, and how people respond to conservatism. Okay, one thing we talked about is on the political spectrum, right? There's a shifting between left and right, back and forth like a pendulum, because when you swing way too far, people cry out for a balance, okay? A balance in return. All right, last one. Here we go. So Alexander the First is, as we talked about, Congress of Vienna. Okay, he's a representative for Russia, and he initially favored enlightened despotism, but by 1815, by the influence of his buddies, right, and the agreement and Holy Alliance, okay, he is increasingly more reactionary, okay, and by his death, it comes a power vacuum, and so what that means is that everyone's trying to take power, and so who is next in line? It's Nicholas the First, who is his younger brother, and so the event in 1825 is the Decembrist Uprising, who are junior military officers. They're part of the upper class, and they are in opposition of a lot of the Russian government leaders because they're autocratic, and so the Decembrists were supporting a lot of the cries of the populace in their grievances, and Russian society is demanding these things, and they are actually of the upper class, and we're seeing the first time in Russia in upper class revolts against the autocratic system of government, and so Nicholas the First is hated, and they don't want him to take over. The Decembrists are kind of rising up and trying to oppose that, but eventually he will be able to suppress them, and he will be the next czar. Okay. Following that, Nicholas is going to bring a lot of changes, as he is the most reactionary monarch in Europe at this time, and so Russia is now going to start changing and becoming a police state, instituting secret police, censorship. Okay, and they're going to ban all representative assemblies, and education is also going to be watched very closely. It's going to be limited because we talked about how university is the birthplace of liberalism and nationalism. Okay, as far as the Russian intellectuals that live in Russia at this time, they are going to be alienated and split. Okay, and so you have two groups. You have the Slavophiles, which are those that believe in traditional Russian culture, and they believe that they are more superior than the Western European nations, Western culture. Okay, and then you have the Westernizers, who obviously they are allegiance and loyalty in believing that they can learn by industrializing and following the type of constitutional governments that exist in the Western nations. Okay, all right, that's it. Okay, about 10 minutes, 11 minutes, and study hard. Hope this gave a little bit more help. Okay, so we'll go through the isms, and there's a actual document study guide for you available that will help you. Okay, all right, see you guys.